On this Thursday night, we're outside historic Windsor Castle with royal stories to tell from the present and the past. With Harry's big day at hand, we'll look at the influential shadow of his mother, Diana. As for Meghan, we'll turn stateside where the frenzy is on for the American bride. The anticipation keeps building, now just 2 sleeps to go.
Also tonight, in Canada's raging game of pipeline politics, who's playing the best hand at issues at the table?
And as the NAFTA deadline passes, the U.S. seems to send mixed messages. How the Prime Minister tried to steer the conversation back on track. The art of the deal, a step at a time. This is The National.
We're here in Windsor, about 45 minutes west of London. That is the castle behind me, where the royal wedding takes place Saturday, home of the monarchy for about 1,000 years. Windsor is showing off now, new coats of paint on just about everything. And the circus has arrived, media and monarchists all jostling for space. 3 words described today at Windsor Castle: preparation, preparation, preparation. The royal standard flies over the battlements, indicating the Queen is now in residence. The royal couple also arrived today to go over their lines behind closed doors, while at St. George's Chapel, the boys' choir also got some practice in. And outside, British armed forces in full regalia rehearsed the carriage procession through the ancient streets.
God bless Harry and Meghan. God save the Queen.
All the happiness in the world, and just enjoy yourself and don't worry about anybody else.
And the empathy seems real over the fact that Meghan Markle's father won't be here. That was confirmed in a statement from the palace today. One more reminder that all families are complicated and royal connections don't spare you from that.
I'm very sorry for her, but it can't be helped, you know. I hope her mum walks down the aisle. I walked my daughter down the aisle. It was such an honour.
And of course, with crowds comes concern. Tighter, more visible security, but even so, police point out this is a time of celebration.
I think we need to remind ourselves and the public this is a wedding.
Along with those new coats of paint, one politician suggested the city's less fortunate be included in the tidying up. Here's the CBC's Margaret Evans now with a look at how that went over.
It won't be long.
2 days before the royal wedding, and the streets of Windsor are like a movable feast. A carnival of activity from one bunting-clad street corner to the next.
Hip, hip, away!
But easy to miss in that frenzy of goodwill are the city's homeless, stepped over or around or simply not seen, unless it's by the media. The profile of Windsor's homeless has never been higher, not since January, when the leader of the local council condemned what he called an epidemic of rough sleeping and vagrancy, asking police to clear the streets before the wedding.
It's shone a light across the whole of the UK, which needed to be done. But for Windsor in particular, I think it will ever now be tarred with homelessness.
Murphy James of the Windsor Homeless Project believes the controversy was behind Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's decision to visit a homeless cafe in Edinburgh. It also drove a charity campaign called For Richer, for Poorer, selling wedding souvenirs with a homeless theme. One fridge magnet goes towards one hot meal, for example. There do seem to be fewer homeless people on the streets than when we visited in January. The police say it's not because they're clearing them out.
What I've said as commander for the wedding on Saturday is this is a national celebration and everybody is welcome.
After all, royal watchers are also sleeping rough on the streets in the hopes of securing a good viewing spot. Police have offered to store the belongings of Windsor's homeless over the weekend, given security concerns and an expected 100,000 visitors.
I think it's great. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a lovely atmosphere.
Kevin says he has no problem with the police or the wedding.
With Harry and William, I've just got a soft spot for them because they've addressed the mental health system and all that. What's your name, man?
Critics say the local council is still doing little to help the homeless survive or find their feet. They declined an interview with the CBC.
At the moment, it's let's get this wedding seen to and let's get that out of the way. But for me, the real story is a month after the wedding. What happens then?
When all the revelry has faded. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Windsor.
Of course, most of that revelry that Margaret's talking about is still 2 days out, but the media presence here seems to grow by the hour, especially from Britain's old renegade colonies.
We made it. We're here in Windsor. Coming up on Today, we've got everything you need to know.
Hey there, and good afternoon from just outside of beautiful Windsor Castle.
The United States might have been born from a violent revolution against the British crown, but there's a lot of love for it these days. And while its media colonizes Windsor, Americans back home have full-blown wedding fever. Our Paul Hunter took their temperature.
It's the hottest new pop-up bar in Washington, where Union Jack sporting bartenders will mix you a Markle Sparkle, a Captain Harry, or even a lime green put a ring on it. Designed to look like the chapel in Windsor, it's royal wedding love, American style.
I'm all in, Meghan Markle, all in.
And so here, amid the fascinators, the tiaras, and the happy couple cutouts, Americans are getting their royal on, and they can't get enough of it. Not least because the bride is, of course, one of their own.
An American princess.
An American princess?
How do you feel about that?
I feel jealous.
Call it a special relationship. And though technically Meghan won't be an actual princess, that hardly matters here.
What do you think?
Americans have tasted royalty before. Actress Grace Kelly married into Monaco's royal family back in the 50s. But British royals are Premier League. Who can forget Diana in the White House that night with John Travolta? Or, as Barack Obama once told Prince Harry's dad,
the American people are quite fond of the royal family. Would be nice to know.
So keep calm, America, and markle on. A country now diving in on all things British.
If you need two fingers to help like that, the Duchess of Cambridge does this as well.
That feels much more comfortable.
And for those without a wedding invite, there are options.
Well, Paul, let's walk into the royal suite.
At this high-end hotel in D.C., it's the Royal Wedding Special. You get this in your room. After they fly you in for 2 nights, you get your own chef, your own makeup people. And they do hair, tickets to a sold-out wedding watch party, and a $10,000 shopping spree. To those who ask, how much?
You're going to say $75,000.
$75,000?
Yes. That's very reasonable for what we're giving, we feel. It's an experience, and we're having some fun with it.
And consider what it now means to have an English accent down here. At the Churchill pub in Manhattan, we caught up with Royals columnist Eloise Parker.
As soon as people realise I'm British, people want to talk to me about the royal family. So, it's a good job that I actually have something to say.
Not far away at the very British Tea and Sympathy,
I've heard there's a wedding coming up.
Owner Sean Kavanagh Dowsett offers what he calls wedding-esque cake, while souvenir mugs and tea towels fly off the shelves. He's loving every minute of America's love affair with Meghan.
She's done all of these wonderful things with her life, and on top of that, she's marrying a prince. I mean, you don't get a much happier ending than that, do you?
1, 2, 3. So Americans toast happy endings, and this time as well, a royal wedding to call their own. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
There's no escaping the excitement here in Windsor, but what if you're not so pumped about the wedding? Well, we have a cheeky survival guide a little later, but first, we'll look at Harry in the shadow of Diana, her impact on how he now leads his life.
He has found a way of loving, of being loved, of having hope for his future, of knowing that he has his responsibilities and that he can make a difference, and that he can just be himself.
The obvious and often subtle ways Harry is following in his mother's footsteps as our coverage from Windsor continues later this hour. And of course, the big event Saturday at 4 a.m. Eastern on CBC. But now back to news at home. And Rosie, there are developments on the NAFTA file.
That's right. Things continue to happen here in this country, too. Another deadline came and went today. And even though the Prime Minister says there's a good deal on the table, there are still no signatures on it. Still, Justin Trudeau's sounding pretty positive. And Katie Simpson has some insight into why that might be.
The Prime Minister may have been speaking to the Economic Club of New York, but his pro-NAFTA message was clearly aimed at Washington.
I guess put it in a frame that maybe someone who, I don't know, did a lot of real estate deals might understand.
Justin Trudeau's direct appeal to Donald Trump was broadcast live on the president's favorite Fox Business Network. He used the event to suggest the U.S. back down from some of its divisive proposals and highlighted progress made by NAFTA negotiators.
To be honest, we're down to a point where there is a good deal on the table.
Trudeau's pitch is part of Canada's efforts to re-energize NAFTA talks, and while his appearance received attention, it wasn't the kind the Prime Minister was looking for. Donald Trump's top man on trade, Robert Lighthizer, said tonight the NAFTA countries are nowhere near close to a deal, adding there are still gaping differences on many issues, including the auto sector. That assessment will not be well received by Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, who flew back to Washington this afternoon, or by the pro-NAFTA factions at the White House, who want to see Trump sign off on a deal as quickly as possible.
And that means time is really of the essence.
U.S. lawmakers had said unless a deal was reached by today, it would be too late for Congress to pass an agreement before the midterm elections in November. But they now say it could still be possible if a deal is reached in the next couple of weeks.
It is generally considered it will be more difficult if the Democrats, who tend to be more protectionist, are in the majority.
This former diplomat says if more Democrats get elected in the midterms this November, as expected, it will be harder to get a new NAFTA approved by Congress. Similar challenges exist in Mexico because of the upcoming federal election on July 1st. Business leaders in Canada also want a deal soon.
Uncertainty means that people leave the cash in the bank, they don't invest in new equipment, they don't hire new people, they don't expand their business, and they wait until they know what the rules are.
And Katie joins me now here in Ottawa, just down the hall. Okay, so that statement from Robert Lighthizer, Katie, it makes me think that they are negotiating in different rooms than the Canadian government. Tell us what we can make of that. How can we understand it?
Well, the U.S. Trade Representative, Rosie, may have been lashing out because from a distance, it looks like the Canadians are really trying to go around him in the hopes of getting a deal done soon. There are different factions in the White House that are either pro or anti-NAFTA, and we know that Justin Trudeau's inner circle has been reaching out to those pro-NAFTA officials for quite some time now in the hopes of influencing the Trump administration. Robert Lighthizer may not like that since he is the one overseeing the negotiations for the Americans, and that could be one reason why he offered such a blunt and very different assessment of the state of talks, Rosie.
Okay, we'll see what happens. You'll be on it. Thank you, Katie. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Ian, you've got a new development in the 60s scoop court settlement. It seemed to have been wrapped up last week.
That's right, Rosemary. Today, some opponents of that settlement raising questions about the judge who signed off on it. They have concerns that before he made that decision, he helped create it. Now, some support the deal, others don't, but as Olivia Stefanovich tells us, the opponents now say they feel the judge's mind may have been made up before the hearings.
Each stroke, a form of expression, a way for artist Mary Longman to deal with haunting memories.
This is the separation
of being taken away as a child from her family during the 60s scoop.
And you can see me in the doorway being defiant and refusing to go.
She's opposed to last week's national settlement and a federal judge's role in approving it.
Felt betrayed because, you know, what it said to myself and to other people is that this is, this whole process is non-transparent.
Justice Michelle Shore was involved in the creation of the nearly $900 million proposed settlement and sits as a temporary and unpaid member of an interim board of a $50 million healing foundation that's being established as part of the deal. Legal experts say the situation is unusual.
I've never heard of a judge wearing both of those hats, and I believe there's a reason for it.
But lawyers on both sides agreed to his involvement in the positions, and no one objected during the proceedings. In a statement, a spokesperson for the federal court cited a rule that allows Justice Shore to serve in both roles. But critics say the rule should only be applied in exceptional circumstances.
The judge isn't there to be a cheerleader for the deal.
60 Scoop survivor Raven Sinclair has worked for years to get a settlement with the federal government, but she understands the problem.
It may not look good to people.
Some survivors are trying to gather 2,000 members to reject the offer, which would kill the deal.
So there's hope.
They're also considering filing a complaint with the body that oversees federal court judges. Olivia Stevanovic, CBC News, Regina.
A remote Nunavut community is issuing an urgent plea for action. With spiraling suicide rates and daily violence, Pontotoc is in crisis. Its 1,400 residents want help from the territorial government. The CBC's Ashley Burke has the story from the hamlet.
It's one of the most picturesque areas in the territory. A remote community on a fjord tucked into the mountainside. But look deeper and the people in Pontotoc are struggling.
We are feeling desperate. Some of us feel hopeless. And with that comes a desperate call for help.
In February, a dozen youth attempted to take their own lives.
Touches you deep because it's the same thing that's repeating itself.
Henry Mike says he's lost count of his friends and family who have died by suicide.
There's sadness, grief, anger, disappointment.
This soup kitchen used to be a youth center. It was a safe haven for teens, but closed after government funding dried up in 2015.
And that void kind of created a lot of idle hands, and those idle hands usually lead to trouble because there's no guidance.
RCMP say the number of alcohol-related calls in the community have increased, and concerns about violence are growing. This is supposed to be a dry community, but the deputy mayor says that isn't stopping people from abusing hard liquor that's being smuggled in through the mail and at airports. In response to the crisis, Government of Nunavut health representatives have hit the ground. They're picking up old or expired medication and handing out trigger locks for guns. Nunavut's Minister of Health says this community's troubles aren't unique in the territory.
There's a lot of communities that are crying out for help, especially mental health counseling.
Government officials and RCMP are meeting with council on Tuesday. Residents hope they don't come empty-handed. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Pontotoc.
In January, volunteers in Pontotoc formed a group to address mental health and wellness issues. Youth, parents, and elders participating in a series of workshops, developing a 5-year action plan to help get the hamlet back on track.
We'll be back in just a moment with more special coverage from Windsor. And a look at an incredible influence on Prince Harry's life. His mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, from her charitable activism to her kindness when others turned away in fear.
He loves to hear the stories of her visits here. He asked the lady, what does she remember of his mother? She said, I remember cuddling up to her on her lap and how soft and comfortable it was. And he said, I remember that well.
They knew the cameras were watching and recording, but they could not discard the mask of royal stoicism. Only the youngest among them, Harry, reached out to touch another, to hold his father's hand.
He was the boy whose heartbreak was so public, the loss of his mother forever marking his life. But anyone who knows grief knows that to really mourn a loved one means being able to talk about them, and sometimes to carry on what they started. Prince Harry has said he is doing just that. His loss has helped him find a life that honors his mother, one of his own, but it will always be shaped in the shadow of Diana.
7, 8, 9, 10, keep going.
When you know that years ago, some declared your life all but over, your death months away,
6, 7,
and you showed them you could survive anyway, then you've earned a smile as broad as Ade's.
really good.
How does it feel when you do that?
Very good.
Yeah?
Very good. It makes me stronger. I love it.
So twist your body.
Hers is a life full of surprises. The worst, collapsing years ago, learning she had HIV, that infection was coursing through her brain. The best, that doctors would save her,
That is Prince Harry.
and she'd live to make a prince of a friend.
He was kissing me and hugging me.
He's been back again and again to see Ade and the others at the Mildmay Clinic for those struggling with HIV.
To bring it out to the public eye, I think that's really quite key for him.
Carrie Reeves-Knipp has been by his side every time.
One of the patients that I took him to was very ill, and he was quite shocked to see somebody that ill in this day and age with HIV in this country.
These encounters have history. Prince Harry in the same place, in the same way as his mother. Diana started coming here in the late 80s. Think of it. There she was, clutching the hands of the very ill at a time when fear was so acute, people were throwing bricks through the Mildmay windows.
People were losing their jobs.
Julian Labastide was a nurse here.
People were having AIDS scribbled on their doors with like graffiti if people noticed that they looked unwell.
For Diana to be so loving with the likes of this man, Martin, whose own family wanted nothing to do with him, who would ship back his letters with return to sender, is really something.
She touched him, she kissed him, and again, it just exploded across the world.
When this photograph went public in the media, his mother came to visit Martin and they reconciled.
It was just in time. Martin died 2 weeks later. Diana is everywhere here. And now that it's her son who shows up, it's the spirit of her he sometimes seems to look for.
He loves to hear the stories of her visits here.
Carrie tells of a miraculous woman who had met Diana as an ill child but survived. Harry had questions for her.
She said to Prince Harry, I remember cuddling up to her on her lap and how soft and comfortable it was. And he said, I remember that well.
And of course he would. His memories are the frozen ones of a child, just 12 with those clenched fists walking behind the casket of his mother. For that personal loss to be so public has, as he has now said so forcefully, marked him.
When you're that young and something like that happens to you, I think it's lodged in your heart and your head, and it stays there for a very, very long time. At that point, I was still, I wasn't there. I was still in shock.
The overwhelming displays of public sorrow have been gone for decades now. But the effect of those surreal moments has stayed.
On one level, I felt furious that so many people were crying and screaming and yelling about someone they didn't know.
Julia Samuel has a long relationship with both grief and the royals.
On another level, it felt completely appropriate that everybody did, because that's what we were all feeling.
She was a friend of Diana's, is close to her sons. She's also a psychotherapist who's written extensively on grief's grip in Grief Works.
Grief is messy, and it's chaotic, and it feels like the weather, and it comes and hits you when you don't expect it.
By his own admission, it's hit Harry especially hard. The lashing out, acting out of his teens and 20s was, it seems, his way of not dealing with it. On the princes, Samuel is quite private, but she cannot hide her pride that their decision to eventually be open about their loss has made a difference for the entire country.
They have shifted the dial in our understanding of the importance of mental health and seeking support.
What does that actually look like?
More people have been ringing all the helplines. More people have been seeking support, particularly young men. Between them, they have really helped save people's lives.
We're already working with our partner charities and thousands of people to change the way that we think about mental health.
This seems one of Samuel's larger lessons about grief, that opening up is freeing. She sees what others do, that just as the public were invested in Harry's grief, they seem to now be rooting for his happiness.
He has found a way of loving, of being loved, of having hope for his future, of knowing that he has his responsibilities and that he can make a difference, and that he can just be himself. And I think that's what connects everybody to him, that he feels so genuine, and Diana was the same way.
My mother campaigned to draw attention to the horrific and indiscriminate impact of landmines.
And what mattered to her, clearly now, by design or default, is what matters to him. Almost all the charities he's thrown himself into reflect her causes too. Those who knew her say Diana understood perfectly exactly the measure of her power, her ability to drag the world's media by the camera lenses towards the people and the causes she found important, draw the light, and then divert it. That is a lesson that stuck. And that's the secret sauce behind some of the wedding plans. Instead of gifts, the couple wants donations for specific charities, like Chiva, dedicated to kids living with HIV and the stigma it brings.
Does anyone want a break?
The volunteers of this tiny group had no idea this was coming, and does it ever matter?
It's the fact that there will be children brought out of isolation because of possible funds that have come from the wedding just opens up someone's world in an incredible way that I wish I would have been able to do when I was a lot younger.
This is personal. Mercy Naglube was born with HIV, wasn't told until she was a teen, and even then was advised to keep it quiet.
Don't tell anybody because it's not going to be accepted in society. You know, it was just like, okay, like, why are you telling me this? What do I do with the information if I'm not supposed to tell anyone? Do I just, like, sit with it? I don't know. And yeah, so I just didn't talk about it.
So she lived two lives, hanging out with university friends who knew nothing about it. Then on the weekends, volunteering with kids with HIV far away. The worlds didn't meet, and it worked until she got a call.
So this is the Diana's Legacy Award. So it has
She'd won the Diana Award for young people who step up, an honor, but to accept, she'd have to open up. They couldn't just give it to you, right? It meant you making a big decision. So what did you have to decide?
Yeah, I thought, actually, this is my real chance to stand up and make some noise, I suppose. And it's a conversation that I'd been having over the past, few months leading up to that, but hadn't quite imagined what the outcome would be like. And so, yeah, I decided that I was going to fully come out, and tell everyone. Yeah, so they work on the anti-bullying side of things.
Being open changed everything. It's the same type of discovery Prince Harry made for himself. She admits she didn't know much about him before, but now there is pride in that voice.
He'd recently done like a HIV test in the UK, which was groundbreaking as well, like a member of the royal family just strutting into a hospital and getting a HIV test, like insane.
Looking back, what does she think of all that time she was holding her hard secret close?
I don't know if it was worth living all that time in isolation and just not being able to talk about something and just sort of being able to step into who I really am and be comfortable with that.
Stepping out of the shadows, stepping into the full glow seems to be much of what Diana and now her son have done for themselves first and for others along the way. And Prince Harry seems acutely aware it's work unfinished. Back at the Mildmay HIV clinic, there is a subtlety it would be easy to miss. The simple frosting on the glass. The patients want that because they're still afraid of being spotted in here, of being judged unfairly. It is slow, steady work to chip away at that, but the Prince seems determined.
He actually did say he's got a sell-by day, in a way. He wants to do as much as he can while he's still got the power to, you know, publicise or break down the stigma.
The clock ticks. Prince William's children will soon grow to have their own causes to champion. They'll be the ones drawing the light. So Harry is a prince in a hurry, aware and grateful for all he's found after all he's lost.
The essence of Diana will be felt at this wedding in many ways, and that's already started with the engagement ring.
The main stone itself is sourced from Botswana, and the little diamonds either side are from my mother's jewelry collection to make sure that she's with us on this crazy journey together.
Then there's the venue. St. George's Chapel will be decked out in white roses, a favorite bloom of Diana's. The flowers were used extensively in her memorial garden at Kensington Palace, which opened last year. And that's where Harry and Meghan posed for pictures the day their engagement was announced. The guest list is packed with Diana's relatives, including her siblings, Earl Charles Spencer, Lady Jane Fellows, and Lady Sarah McCorquodale. In fact, Lady Jane will give a reading at the ceremony. And the rumors abound that Meghan will wear the Spencer family tiara as the something borrowed. It's the very one Diana chose for her own wedding day. Lots to watch for on Saturday morning. We'll be back with more from here in Windsor in a moment, including what to do if you're not that excited about the wedding.
Do those people even exist? That can't be possible. And not to be outdone by Harry and Meghan, look who's here for tonight for a special At Issue. Andrew and Chantal, the perfect couple, right after the break.
We're prepared, for example, to indemnify the project against any financial loss that derives from Premier Horgan's attempts to delay or obstruct the project.
I'm doing what I said I would do. I'm defending the interests of British Columbia.
That if the path forward for the pipeline through BC is not settled soon, I am ready and prepared to turn off the taps.
Still 3 players, but the game has changed a bit. Bill Morneau is now putting taxpayer dollars where the government's mouth is. Morneau, Horgan, and Notley all spoke on Wednesday, all digging in for a long fight, or a fight at least that's going to last another couple weeks. Every week for this, we on Facebook and Twitter, we put out this At Issue in 60 seconds. Tonight, we have At Issue in 6 minutes. You can thank the Royal Wedding for that. Chantal Hébert is in Montreal. Andrew Coyne is in Toronto. And we've just got the two of you because 6 minutes is plenty of time for the two of you. Let me start with you, Andrew. What did you make of that move by the federal government this week to, I don't know what they were trying to do, force Kinder Morgan's hand, signal that they were coming to an end, put pressure on Horgan? How did you interpret that?
Maybe a bit of all those things, including not just reassuring Kinder Morgan, but also letting them know that they think they've got options in case Kinder Morgan walks away. The problem, of course, is they've boxed themselves in to a certain extent. They boxed themselves partly because the Prime Minister, prior to the election, went around legitimizing opposition to the pipelines by saying people had to have social license, or that implying that Aboriginal groups had not just a right to be consulted, but some kind of veto. And then when they allowed Energy East to go under and they killed off Northern Gateway, they're left with just this one pipeline, which they've now declared they have to get built. I think in the circumstances, they're doing what they have to do. They've got, Kinder Morgan's make it very clear they have to give them some kind of assurance that they're not going to have the value of their investment essentially expropriated by the government of BC. This is only the first step, however. There's lots of other things they've got to deal with. They've got to deal with existing Aboriginal court challenges, and they've got to deal with the protesters on the ground.
Chantal, what did you make of that move?
Well, we already knew that the government was willing to put taxpayers' money on the table since the Prime Minister said as much after meeting with the premiers a month ago. So what I learned from Bill Morneau's news conference was that he had yet to manage to convince Kinder Morgan that there was enough money on the table and that the project was worth pursuing. Yeah. Putting pressure on Premier Horgan, I don't think so, frankly, because BC's course is fairly clear. They have gone to court, and until the court responds to their reference, nothing much is going to happen to their position. So you're not going to get a resolution that has BC on board or passive by the end of this month. And beyond that, I think that the federal government was mostly trying to fill the frame to say, we are doing something, we're working on this.
So if 2 weeks passes, and May 31st is the deadline, the self-imposed deadline, I guess, that Kinder Morgan has given itself, 2 weeks passes and Kinder Morgan walks away, could the federal government then legitimately say, Andrew, we have done everything we can. If no one else comes to the table, we tried to get a new pipeline, but we're out of luck? And would that be acceptable? Would that be good enough?
It certainly wouldn't be acceptable to Alberta. And I don't think that it would happen that way. I think one way or another, somebody's going to step up. I think the government of Alberta has said that. So hopefully it's Kinder Morgan, from my point of view. Hopefully it remains a private sector solution. But there are governments in the mix, and there are governments that are determined to see this pipeline built. I should say the other shoe that still has to drop is federal legislation. Yes. Clarifying, one hopes, the jurisdictional questions here and giving some instructions to the courts in that regard. And if they're successful in that, and if they can head off BC's delaying tactics, they may never have to pay this indemnification. This is insurance, in other words. If they're not successful, if BC does manage to delay it and add a lot of costs, then they'll have to pay out, which I hope will then get recouped from the government of BC. But if they are successful, then this is all just insurance.
And is it worthwhile insurance, Chantal, in terms of what taxpayers' money should be used for?
That's really hard to say. There's a political bill that might have to be paid for this. Polls show that a majority of Canadians, not necessarily a huge majority in BC, believe this pipeline should be built, but it also shows that a lot of voters are wondering why the federal government would be putting public funds in a private project. That being said, about the federal legislation thing, you, like me, know that the clock is running out on the spring session, and Parliament is about to adjourn for the summer. So getting legislation adopted in both houses of Parliament is hardly a done deal. And even if it were, I'm sure it would provide extra instructions to the courts, but I don't see how it would stop BC from pursuing a reference. The BC government is perfectly entitled, as would any other provincial government, to ask its top court for advice on an issue.
And is that ultimately where this is going to get decided then, Andrew? Is it, I mean, perhaps there'll be a deal, and that's fine, but it will be court decisions that decide whether this happens or not, will it not?
That's right. But again, does the federal legislation, first of all, does it have an impact on the BC court reference? It may well, in terms of their deliberations. And secondly, does it give some assurance to Kinder Morgan when they're looking at this very murky future that maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that maybe at the end of the day they'll actually get this through, even if it's not, absolutely cut and dry by May 31st. It's going to be up to them. Do they feel that they've got sufficient assurance by that point?
Okay, I got to leave it there. Thank you both for the 6-minute version. You did well. Good news for all of you who love politics as much as we do and want more than 6 minutes. At Issue is also a podcast. You get what we talked about here tonight, but you also get extra. This week's extra, the name Stephen Harper has been resurrected, at least by himself. What does that mean for Andrew Scheer and anything else? Look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/thenational.
A new poll here in Britain suggests 7 in 10 people have no interest in Saturday's royal wedding. Coming up on The National, our Margaret Evans on how that lack of excitement is on display.
You can pick up one of these, the Royal Wedding Sick Bag, on Carnaby Street. They first tested it out back in 2011 when Prince William married Kate.
It's very much for people who may be slightly overwhelmed by the media hype and particularly need this, on the day itself.
A billion people or more around the world are expected to watch the Windsor wedding on Saturday, but not everyone in Britain has caught the fever. Margaret Evans looks at what might help them get through it.
It might not look like it when you're in a shop like this one, but not everyone in the UK is excited about the royal nuptials. So, We put together a list of coping mechanisms for people who'd really rather not partake. Call it an unwedding. Step 1, arm yourself. You can pick up one of these, the Royal Wedding Sick Bag, on Carnaby Street. They first tested it out back in 2011 when Prince William married Kate.
It's very much for people who may be slightly overwhelmed by the media hype and particularly need this, on the day itself.
You can also register your disapproval here by picking up an unwedding souvenir. How about a commemorative plate with that other famous ginger? Number 2, always have a backup plan. What do you do, for instance, when they've even taken over the good old double-decker bus tour with something called the Royal Wedding Afternoon Tea Bus Tour? Maybe head down to the Tower of London to remind yourself of just how bad the kings and queens of old used to be.
Welcome to Not the Royal Wedding.
Or tune into a podcast called Not the Royal Wedding.
Is Meghan Markle a good catch for a very fusty, traditional institution?
Because I think she's gone from successful actress with autonomy to public servant with racist in-laws. Just a slightly different perspective on it.
But let's face it, it's everywhere. You can't even buy sushi in this town without having to look at Meghan and Harry staring into each other's eyes, or yours. But every cloud has its silver lining, and in honor of the wedding, the pubs will be allowed to stay open late. Which brings us to our final coping strategy. Sit back, buckle up, and pour yourself a drink. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
We'll be back here from Windsor tomorrow night. Rosie and Ian are back after our break. First, though, a sneak peek at a documentary you can watch tomorrow night on CBC Television. Peter Mansbridge, remember him, takes us inside Kensington Palace with a royal wedding for the ages.
King's Gallery.
King's Gallery. This place has got a history. Kensington's got a history, and it's not all good.
No, that's right. It's like any other family. They've suffered pain and loss and setbacks. Queen Mary died of smallpox here. Her husband died, shattered collarbone. Anne, their sister and sister-in-law, she had 17 pregnancies, none of the children of which reached adulthood. 17. It's tragic. And then, George I, he had this beautiful room built, but he had a complicated personal life. He'd locked his wife up in a castle in Germany for being unfaithful to him, and his health really declined towards the end as well. So the people who lived here might have been kings and queens and princes, but just like everybody else, they found life could be pretty tough.
Watch for that tomorrow night on CBC Television, and on Saturday, don't forget to set your alarm. We will give you a front row seat to the wedding of the year beginning at 4 a.m. Eastern. Watch the royal wedding, Harry and Meghan, on CBC Television, CBC News Network, and cbcnews.ca.
On the National tonight, Guido Amsel, who mailed bombs to his ex-wife and 2 lawyers back in 2015, has been found guilty of 15 charges, including counts of attempted murder. One of the lawyers, Marie Matussis, lost her right hand in the attack. A judge also found Amsel guilty of delivering a bomb to his ex in 2013. The 52-year-old now awaits sentencing.
It's just devastating to see so many people displaced and have all their belongings just gone and have no insurance. I mean, the federal government really needs to step up their game.
Also tonight, flooding in BC's interior could go from bad to worse as officials warn of a second surge. The military has been called in to help with evacuations, sandbagging, and reinforcing dams and dikes. More than 140 troops are already on the ground, and another 175 are expected to arrive by tomorrow. And we are keeping a close eye on Hawaii's Big Island through the evening. An explosion from the Kilauea volcano this morning shot a plume of hot ash 9,000 meters into the sky. People living nearby were told to stay put until the air clears.
That's consistent with what we were expecting. And so
you know, we could expect similar events to happen in the future as these kind of interactions between the groundwater and the lava continue.
Meanwhile, about 40 kilometers east of the volcano, fissures continue to spew toxic gas and lava. At least 26 homes have been destroyed, and 2,000 residents have been told to leave the area. The town of Sheffield, England, has a new Lord Mayor. At 28, Magic Magid is the youngest person appointed to this largely ceremonial role. But his official portrait is far from traditional, and perhaps that's why it's getting so much attention online. We asked him about that photo and what all these firsts mean to him. That is our moment of the day.
Lord Mayor of Sheffield, Councillor Majid Majid.
I'm just going to quickly perch up against it and just do a gargoyle squat, just because I thought it would be quite funny. Just take the shot quickly before security sees us. It was this great city that I call home today, Sheffield, that welcomed many people like me. Me and my family moved to Sheffield from Somalia when I was 5 years old to look for a better life. Fast forward to today, and I am honoured and privileged to have been given the highest honour that can be bestowed upon any citizen in this city. Honestly, quite surreal, the amount of love and support everyone's just showed. Not just for the picture, but just everything has been really, really quite touching.
So, of course, when his mom saw him sitting like that, like a gargoyle, as he describes himself, or as a total dude pose, she did not know what was going on. He apparently just did it, as you heard him say. He was comfortable. He thought it would be different. But his mom thought it was strange, as mums do.
So why would our moment be about a ceremonial mayor in a place across an ocean? Because it's creating so much excitement. And I think politics on both sides of the Atlantic need more people that can make people excited. When Ariel, our super producer, called him, he graciously and very, in an entertaining way, answered her questions.
Also, he dropped an S-bomb during his speech. So he's trying to shake things up. That's good. That's what politics needs. Also, we thought we'd do a British thing because, you know, the wedding thing's coming. Anyway,
he's an interesting guy. People can read more about him.
All right, that's the National for May 17th. I didn't know who was doing it. Good night.
Good night.